Hi, almost everyone is watching my channel without a subscription. Please support me and subscribe. I release videos every day for you. Story 1. My mom sided with my cheating ex-girlfriend instead of me, and I'll never be able to forgive her. My mom raised me on her own. 2 years after I was born, my dad died. Most of my life, I worked hard at my job, and my mom was happy about that. But when I was 20, I met my ex-girlfriend, and we started dating. We used to work together, but she told me she was going to change jobs soon. She met a new guy at her new job and fell in love with him while she was still seeing me. I didn't know until she told me after a girls' night out with her friends that she had sex with him. I broke up with her right away and kicked her out. After I had been trying to figure out what had happened for a few hours, my mom called and yelled at me that she hadn't raised me this way. I didn't understand what she meant, so I asked her what she meant. She told me that my ex-girlfriend said I cheated on her, and she'd found proof of that on my phone. I just heard something that I couldn't believe. I tried to tell my mother that the opposite is true and that she has cheated on me, but she didn't believe me. She and my mom probably loved each other a lot, which could be part of the reason. That was never a problem for me. Up until then, I liked how well they got along. My mother said I was a liar and that she would cut me out of her will because she doesn't want a cheater for a son. She told me she would never see me again. Then later my grandparents called me to tell me they were upset with me and that I deserved everything bad that was going to happen. Do you know what was the worst? I found out that after everything she did, my cheating ex-girlfriend kept meeting with my mom. All of this hurt me so much. My best friend, who was very angry with her, was the only one who agreed with me. I talked to him, and he hugged me. He held me while I cried. I know that a lot of people would find that strange for two guys. His help really helped me get through this, though. When I was over a year later, the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, I saw my mom with tears in her eyes. I could feel my emotions rising, so I slammed the door and started crying, asking her what the hell she wants here. She told me she was sorry and wanted to talk to me. I let her in after she begged me for 15 minutes straight. She told me that my ex said she cheated on me when she was drunk. She said she was sorry and that she knew she had failed as a mother because she didn't believe her own child. I told her that I would accept her apology, but that I didn't want to see her right now and that I probably couldn't forgive her. Despite the fact that she begged me to forgive her, in the last few months, she has been calling me every day just to hear my voice, as she said. She told me she missed me, apologized again, and then asked me to come over. Her voice has always sounded kind of painful, and she always tells me how much she loves me and how she can't live with the thought that I hate her. I don't even detest her. I still love her. She is still my mom, but I can no longer trust her. I'll never be able to trust her again because what if I fell in love again? Who says she wouldn't just take their word over mine again? I know she tried, but I can't forgive her or even talk to her now. I hope she knows that I need time though. Update 11-22. Update. My mom sided with my cheating ex-girlfriend instead of me, and I'll never be able to forgive her. Hello. Yesterday, I read too many comments, so I decided to talk to my mom about everything today. I sent her a text message to come over, and she came right away. Within 15 minutes, she showed up right at my door. Several of you brought up good points that I should ask her about. Even though she called a lot, we didn't talk much. So when she came over, I made her a seat in the living room. I asked her about my grandparents, her will, and whether or not she still talks to my ex. She said that she had told my grandparents and expected them to call me, but it seems like they were too stubborn. She also told me again that I'm in her will. Then she talked trash about my ex. She said that when she found out, she hit her so hard that some of her teeth fell out. I don't think this part of the story is true, but I wanted to tell you about it anyway because I thought it was funny. She told her to have **** off and kicked her out of the house, she said. She then started apologizing again and telling me that she knows how bad of a mistake she made and that I probably won't be able to trust her again, but she will do everything she can to make this right. She told me that the man before my father had cheated on her, so she didn't like to talk about cheating. Then she told me she was sorry she didn't believe me or even try to understand my side of the story. I didn't say anything while she told me all of this. Then I asked her how I knew I could now trust her. What would happen if I ended up in a similar situation and she just dumped me again? She told me I had her word, but I told her that her word didn't mean much because I didn't trust her. She didn't answer that question well, and she asked me again to forgive her. I told her that I can't forgive her right now, and maybe I'll never be able to. I do see her efforts, though, as she wants me back in her life. She needs to show me that I can trust her. She started getting teary-eyed. I could tell that she tried hard not to cry the whole time. But then she started crying, and in a weak voice, she asked if she could at least hug me. I agreed, and she said she would do whatever it took to make things right. Then she left. Do not forget to subscribe and leave comments. Videos are released every day. Now, I'm kind of moved by how much she shows she regrets what she did, but I'm really worried about how I'll react. I didn't feel anything when she broke down, and I saw my own mother crying on the floor. I wasn't sad, angry, or happy, and I didn't feel anything for her. I just couldn't. During the year, I didn't talk to her. I didn't want to go to therapy. Maybe you can still do that now. In the end, I'd like to thank everyone for their kind words and help. I try to read all of your comments, but the post got a lot more attention than I thought it would. Enjoy your day. Story 2. Bio Dad's wife inserts herself in OP's attempts to establish contact. Share medical history. Okay, this is gonna be kinda long, because the amount of drama leading up to this is ridiculous. Usually I just summarize, but the context is important. I'm gonna change names in specific locations, cause I don't want to get tracked down and found out and stuff. It all started a few months before I was even conceived. My biological mother, let's call her Chloe, was engaged to a man who we will call Carl. So Chloe was working at a Walmart while engaged to Carl and decided to cheat on him with her boss, who we'll call Harold. So Harold had no idea Chloe was engaged until they had been dating for a while. Things are going well between them until one day Harold catches Chloe on a date with his best friend. This leads to a big fight where Chloe hits Harold, and he has to lock her out of the house to protect himself. She calls the police on him, and due to the crappy domestic dispute laws in their state, they'd go to spend the night in jail. Somehow Harold is blamed for the incident and is ordered to take 2 years of anger management and decides to never speak to Chloe again. A few weeks later, Harold gets a text from one of his friends, telling him that Chloe is pregnant and that Harold is the father. He immediately calls bullshit because Chloe is not only engaged to another man who is probably the father, but was also being intimate with many other men. So he brushes it off and forgets about it. A couple months pass, and Harold gets a call from an adoption agency saying that they need to talk to him. Chloe has decided to give the baby, hey, that's me, up for adoption, and Harold needs to sign some papers since she put him down as the father. He agrees to sit down with someone from the agency, but only to talk to them about the claims. So he meets a representative and tells them that he doesn't think he's the father. The guy from the agency goes, oh great, just sign here then, and hands Harold the documents to surrender his rights as a father. Harold signs them and doesn't hear anything from them again. Meanwhile with Chloe, she has the baby with her fiancé in the room, which gives me infinite respect for him, and the baby is adopted 3 days later. Unfortunately, the baby, who is me, was born with a slew of genetic illnesses. I end up in the hospital only 20 days later because my kidney was collapsing in on itself. To save time, let's just say that growing up I spent a disgusting amount of time in the hospital. My health was in a perpetual downward spiral, and every time we found a solution to one problem, a new one would pop up and wreak havoc on my tiny body. It all came to a head one day when I was 13, when I was in so much pain that my doctors thought I was having a heart attack. I wasn't, but hadn't been diagnosed yet, so they had no clue. So after being told by my doctors in the hospital that I had a heart attack, my adopted dad, who we'll call Marcus, freaked out and finally reached out to Harold for the first time. He asked for his medical records so that they could better assess the situation and decide what to do. Here is where the problems started. The first incident. So while I was busy being cripplingly ill, Harold had forgotten all about me and started a new life with a woman he met a month after my birth. Let's call her Heather because she reminds me of Heather Duke. They had 2 sons at the time, and Harold hadn't told Heather anything about maybe having another kid. To clarify, I sent the area for this part, so I am only telling what did I avden 2 old ppned. So Heather finds the email that my dad sent to Harold and absolutely loses her mind. She thinks he cheated on her or something, and blocks my dad on Facebook and starts messaging Chloe on Facebook. Now this is where the story gets a little tricky. I have been told 2 different versions of this event, and honestly I'm not 100% sure which one is true, so I'll just tell both. Chloe's version. Heather started sending mass amounts of hate and harassment to Chloe, basically telling her to step off and get away from her man. Heather insisted that Harold wasn't the father, and Chloe was lying. By this point in time, Chloe was already married and had 2 daughters that she kept, one who belonged to her old fiancé, and one who belonged to her current husband. She had also built a relationship with me. She read me some of the messages that Heather sent during a weekend I was spending with her and my half-sister almost 4 years later. She said, I quote, "Her grammar was atrocious, but I didn't think correcting it was the right way to go." Heather's version. Heather reached out to Chloe to talk to her about the situation and what she wanted them to do. Chloe snapped at her and said there was no way that my parents would put me through a paternity test. Because Chloe said that, they decided not to pursue the test. Do not forget to subscribe and leave comments. Videos are released every day. After these communications, all contact was lost and my dad lost Harold's cell phone number. The whole interaction ended with no paternity test and no medical records. Recent event is. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here is what has happened in the last month. So my health has progressively gotten worse, and I now have to apply for disability if I want to pay for my ungodly amount of medications. The lawyer I hired said that having a full family medical history might be helpful. So I asked my super smart friend to track Harold down so I could contact him. Long story short, I got his number and I left him a voicemail that was basically me just begging him to help me, saying I was sorry for intruding on his life and begging for him not yell at me. He called back after like 20 minutes, and to my extreme surprise, he was happy to hear from me. He said that not contacting me was one of the biggest regrets of his life. We cried together on the phone, and I told him about the genetic disorders I have and how I was worried for his kids. He'd assured me that they were healthy, and I cried cause I was relieved. We talked throughout the week until eventually he had to fly home from his business trip and tell his wife what was going on. Needless to say, it did not go well. Heather was pissed and demanded that we limit contact until the results of the paternity test came in. Unfortunately for her, it came back positive and confirmed that I am his daughter. Here is where the story gets sticky again, because I have been told two different versions of what happened during the last week. Harold's version. Harold and Heather got in a big fight, and she made him tell her sons what he did. Maybe it was meant to humiliate him, but if so, it backfired because his sons were so excited to have a sister. One of them compared me to Shazam, I think. Harold left to go on another trip for work, and he and Heather fought right before he left for the airport. He called me while he drove there and told me all of this, and said that he didn't want to lose contact with me again. I was so happy he still wanted me around, but I was sad that I screwed up his family. He told me it wasn't my fault, but I still felt bad. I got Heather's version of events much later, at 11 p.m. when I was trying to eat my ramen. She messaged me on Facebook and claimed that this is what really happened. Heather's version. Harold was unhappy about the test and said that I was too much too fast, but wouldn't tell me that because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. They told their sons and they weren't happy about it either. She told me that Harold hardly has time for his kids, and I was forcing your way in. Now, I am a very sensitive person and have a habit of breaking down over the smallest things because of other stuff that's happened in my past. But that's not relevant right now, which is why I'm very proud of how I handled this. I texted Harold and told him that his wife had contacted me, and within seconds he had called me and asked me to read what she had said. I read it to him and also read the apology I sent to her. He apologized on her behalf and asked if I was okay because I sounded like I was crying, which I was, but I didn't want him to feel bad, so I just told him I was fine. I was just tired. I'd asked him what I should do, and he told me to just be myself. So I apologized to her again and again while she snapped at me, and eventually she stopped. I had to go to bed. Things were quiet after that, and I tried not to message them because I didn't want to get yelled at again. This morning I got diagnosed with severe scoliosis and yesterday with epilepsy. And since those are usually genetic, I texted Harold and told him he might want to get his sons tested for it. Apparently this was a bad idea because Heather proceeds to message me and tell me to stop texting them, and that I was not helping their marriage. I try to explain that I was just trying to help, and asking her to please stop lashing out at me. She just texted back with, "I'm not lashing out. We just want you to leave us alone." I haven't responded back because her message really hurt. I just shut down and fell asleep to cope. I apologized to Harold, but he hasn't replied to the text, which is making me think that maybe they really do want me to leave them alone. I also know that Harold told me the exact opposite. My anxiety is having a field day and I have absolutely no idea what to do. My main goal in this situation is to preserve my relationship with Harold and try to get Heather to like me. What do I do? TLDR. Biological dad's wife doesn't want me around at all and keeps telling me things that I know aren't true because biological dad already told me the truth. Now she is claiming that they want me to leave them alone even though he told me he wanted to build a relationship. Help please. My 19F biological father's 45M, wife 40F, wants me to just leave them alone. 10 August 2021. Hello. Sorry this update has taken a while to come out, but but I promise there is a good reason for it. My girlfriend drove down to visit me for a week, and I was preoccupied spending time with her. I was really hoping that the news I have to share with you would change. So long story short, I took the advice I was given and muted Heather's messages to me. The stuff she was saying to me has really gotten to me, and at this point I'm not quite sure if I'm the bad guy. I called Harold and talked to him about the situation, and told him that I don't think it is in my best interest to talk to his wife. This is where things took a bit of a sad turn. Harold agreed with his wife and said it would be best if I just left them alone for a while. I was stunned for a few moments because this is the opposite of what he had told me less than 24 hours earlier. That said, even if he had said something else beforehand, I know that I have to respect his decision. I told him that I would stop all contact, and when he is ready to talk again, it will be on him to message me. That's where the call ended, and we haven't spoken since. It sucks. I'm kinda hurt. I know I have no right to be hurt about it, but I still am. I've come to the decision that it's not my job to make them like me. This was probably not going to end any other way. It's painful, but it's the world we live in. I'm sorry I don't have a happier ending to share, but I'd still like to thank you guys for the amount of support and loving messages I received on my first post. I don't think I could have endured this without you guys, and the validation you provided me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to send such kind messages and helpful advice. I appreciate each and every one of you, and am sending virtual hugs. TLDR, Harold's wife got to him, and there is no more contact. She won, and I am leaving them alone. EDIT, you. I got on one of the Reddit YouTube videos. Apparently everyone on YouTube either thinks the story is fake, or that Heather's sons don't belong to Harold. Also, I still haven't heard anything from Harold. I'm starting to think that something is either very wrong, or they genuinely don't want me around. I've stuck to my guns though, and I'm not contacting them. Edit 2 in October. 2 things have happened. I needed to reach out to him because my cat got sick again, and he works in pet insurance and care, and I asked him for advice on what insurance carrier to use. It was cordial and completely professional. No emotions and nothing other than business. It hurt to see him act so cold, but thus is life. His wife, who my dad, Marcus, now refers to exclusively as Heather, updated her Facebook so that it says, "Stay in your lane, bitch," directly under her name when you click on her profile. I feel grossed out that she's acting like I'm some jealous lover who wants to steal her man. I'm his kid, not as a fair partner. Also, I'm going down to see my girlfriend this December. She's been the biggest help and support throughout this disaster. If I ever get a more significant update, I'll ask the mods to let me post a part 3. I doubt I'll get one though. I think this is where this saga ends. I have an adopted dad who loves me, and a biological mother who loves me. I think I can be content with that. OP states in a separate post bio dad was told the severity of her medical situation in the initial request for medical records. You didn't need to take any responsibility. That's not what my dad wanted when he called you that day. I was 13 and having what was essentially a heart attack. All we wanted was your medical records so that we could make sure I didn't have some scary heart condition that was killing me. I knew that. He told you that, but you still ghosted my dad after your wife harassed my biological mother for a week. And guess what? I do have a heart condition, and your records that I had to drag out of you years later would have proved that years earlier. Who knows how different my life would be if I had gotten treatment back then. I can't say I don't hate you, but I can't say that I do either. Comment thread circa August 2022 on how OP is doing now. OP. Yeah, it's been a year, and honestly, I'm doing pretty good. I don't need him in my life to be happy. I've had health updates since, and decided not to tell him. I do worry about his kids, but I am not going to sacrifice my own mental health for theirs. Do not forget to subscribe and leave comments. Videos are released every day.